Why do you feel like something invisible keeps you trapped? That endless cycle, that magnetic force pulling you back, no matter how many times you try to escape. Have you ever suspected there's a design behind it? That your prison was engineered with surgical precision to keep you exactly where you are? Carl Jung discovered the truth few have the courage to face. You were designed to get addicted, not by accident, not by weakness, but because they disconnected you from the only source that could satisfy you. Your dependency is the symptom of a spiritual theft. Someone or something replaced the sacred with the synthetic. And now you chase substitutes while your soul dies of thirst. The system that got you addicted doesn't want you to discover this. But Jung left the clues. Your liberation begins when you see the trap and recognize that your search was always for something infinitely greater. You were born whole. There was a moment in your early life when you felt connected to everything around you. Maybe it was lying in the grass watching clouds, or the way sunlight filtered through trees, or that inexplicable sense that you belonged to something vast and mysterious. You didn't have words for it then, but you felt held by an invisible presence that made life feel sacred. Then something happened. Slowly, methodically, that connection was severed. It didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual theft so subtle you didn't notice until the emptiness became unbearable. The world told you to stop dreaming, stop imagining, stop believing in things you couldn't see or measure. They said, grow up, be practical, focus on what's real. And by real, they meant only what could be touched, bought and controlled. Jung saw this pattern repeat across thousands of lives. He watched people enter his office carrying the same wound, wearing different masks. They came seeking relief from alcohol, pills, sex, work, food, gambling. But underneath every addiction was the same story, a soul that had been stolen and replaced with a cheap imitation of life. The modern world performed a magic trick. It convinced you that the material realm was all that existed, and in doing so, it severed your connection to the source of meaning itself. This wasn't random. It was systematic. Every institution you encountered growing up reinforced the same message. Schools trained you to memorize facts, but never taught you how to listen to your inner voice. Religion often became hollow ritual without genuine spiritual experience. Society measured your worth by productivity, appearance, and accumulation. You learned to ignore the whispers of your soul because nobody around you seemed to hear theirs either. The trap works because it's invisible. You can't fight what you can't see. You wake up one day feeling empty, restless, anxious, and you have no idea why. Nothing is technically wrong. You have a job, a home, maybe a family, but something fundamental is missing. There's a hole inside you that aches with a hunger no meal can satisfy. You feel disconnected, floating through life like a ghost in your own story. This is when the trap tightens, because now you're desperate for relief, and the same system that created your emptiness is ready with solutions. Have a drink, take this pill, buy this product, stream this content, swipe for connection, work harder, eat more. The options are endless, but they all share one quality. They keep you distracted from the real problem. Jung called this the loss of soul. He understood that humans are not merely biological machines responding to stimuli. We are spiritual beings having a material experience. When you cut off the spiritual dimension, you don't eliminate the need for it. You create a void that demands to be filled, and a soul starved of genuine nourishment will accept poisoned substitutes. The genius of the trap is that it keeps you searching in all the wrong places. You think you need more money, so you work yourself to exhaustion. You think you need more pleasure, so you chase increasingly intense experiences. You think you need more comfort, so you numb yourself with whatever works. Each attempt to fill the void actually deepens it, because you're trying to satisfy a spiritual hunger with material food. Your ancestors understood something the modern world forgot. They knew that humans need ritual, ceremony, connection to nature, and acknowledgement of forces greater than themselves. They built their lives around seasonal cycles, gathered in sacred spaces, and honored the mystery of existence. They had frameworks for understanding suffering, death, transformation, and rebirth. When someone felt lost, the community had practices to help them find their way back. Now you're alone with your pain, scrolling through your phone at 3 in the morning, wondering why nothing feels real anymore. The trap has you exactly where it wants you, isolated, confused, and convinced that your suffering is a personal failure rather than a natural response to spiritual starvation. But here's what the trap doesn't want you to know. The hole inside you is actually a doorway. That emptiness you feel isn't a defect, it's an invitation. Your soul is calling you home, and it will keep calling until you answer. The pain of disconnection is supposed to hurt. It's a compass pointing you back toward what you lost. Every craving, every compulsion, every desperate reach for something more is your inner self trying to remember what it forgot. Understanding the trap is only the beginning. The deeper question is how your natural spiritual thirst got hijacked and turned into something that destroys you. Jung spent decades studying this transformation, and what he discovered reveals the twisted intelligence behind your suffering. Human beings have always sought transcendence. This isn't a flaw or weakness, it's hardwired into your consciousness. Your brain literally craves experiences that take you beyond your ordinary sense of self. Mystics, shamans, and spiritual practitioners throughout history developed techniques to access these states safely. Meditation, prayer, fasting, dancing, chanting, plant medicines used ceremonially. These practices allowed people to touch the infinite while remaining grounded in community and tradition. The modern system recognized this craving but stripped away the sacred container. It took your legitimate need for transcendence and offered you shortcuts that lead nowhere. Instead of a spiritual practice that connects you to something greater, you get a substance that hijacks your brain chemistry. Instead of a community ritual that transforms consciousness, you get isolation and a screen. Instead of a guided journey into your depths, you get a quick hit that leaves you emptier than before. This corruption is brilliant in its cruelty. The system doesn't try to eliminate your spiritual thirst. That would be impossible. Instead, it redirects that thirst toward products and experiences that can never satisfy but keep you coming back. You feel the call of the infinite, but you're handed finite substitutes. It's like dying of thirst in the desert and being offered salt water. The liquid looks like what you need, and drinking it provides momentary relief, but it actually accelerates your death. Jung observed that addiction often begins during moments of spiritual awakening. Something cracks open inside you. Maybe it's grief, trauma, a sudden glimpse of life's meaninglessness, or conversely a flash of cosmic connection that shows you how far you've drifted from your true self. In that vulnerable moment, you're standing at a crossroads. One path leads toward genuine transformation, which requires courage, patience, and often a complete restructuring of your life. The other path offers immediate relief through external substances or behaviors that promise to take the edge off. Guess which path the system has made easily accessible? Within minutes, you can obtain chemicals that flood your brain with artificial bliss. You can access infinite novelty that keeps your nervous system activated. You can find communities online that normalize and encourage your escape. Meanwhile, genuine spiritual guidance, authentic teachers, and supportive communities for transformation are either expensive, hard to find, or dismissed as irrelevant by mainstream culture. The mechanism is deceptively simple. Your soul experiences a moment of awakening, a glimpse of what life could be if you were truly alive. This glimpse creates unbearable contrast with your current existence. You suddenly see how dead you've been, how much of your life you've spent sleepwalking. The pain of this recognition is intense. It's the pain of remembering what you lost. In a healthy culture, Elders and guides would be waiting for this moment. They would recognize the signs of awakening and help you navigate the difficult terrain ahead. They would say, yes, this is painful, and it's supposed to be. You're being called to shed an old skin and become someone new. They would give you practices, connect you with others walking the same path, and hold space for your transformation. But you don't have that. Instead, you have a culture that pathologizes spiritual crisis and medicates discomfort. When you feel the earth shifting beneath your feet, when the old structures of meaning collapse, when you glimpse the void beneath all your certainties, the system's response is clear. Make it stop. Take this. Do that. Distract yourself. Get back to normal. And if you can't get back to normal, at least numb yourself enough to function. So you do. You reach for whatever works. And it does work temporarily. The substance or behavior delivers relief. Your brain learns that when spiritual pain arises, this external solution makes it go away. A neural pathway forms. Soon, the slightest whisper of existential discomfort triggers the craving. Your spiritual thirst has been successfully rerouted into a dependency loop. The cruelest part is that you blame yourself. You think you're weak, broken, or morally deficient. You don't realize you're actually experiencing a normal response to an abnormal situation. Your soul is starving, and you've been conditioned to feed it poison. The shame and self-hatred that follow each relapse become part of the trap, driving you deeper into the cycle, because now you need relief from the pain of failing to escape the pain. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. The substitution happened so gradually that most people never noticed. One generation had rituals, the next had routines. One generation had ceremonies, the next had entertainment. One generation touched the divine through practice and discipline. The next bought products promising instant enlightenment. The sacred was carefully extracted from daily life and replaced with synthetic versions designed to look similar but function completely differently. Jung witnessed this transition accelerating during his lifetime. He saw how industrialization and scientific materialism, while bringing tremendous benefits, also severed humanity's connection to the symbolic and spiritual dimensions of existence. The modern mind became homeless, cut off from the mythological frameworks that once provided meaning and direction. Think about what you've been given as substitutes for genuine spiritual nourishment. Instead of silence and contemplation, you have constant noise and stimulation. Instead of community gathered in shared purpose, you have isolated individuals staring at screens. Instead of seasonal rhythms that attune you to natural cycles, you have artificial light and climate control that erase all sense of time. Instead of meaningful work that serves something greater than yourself, you have jobs that feel pointless but pay the bills. The synthetic versions are everywhere. Organized religion often becomes performance without transformation, words without power, belief without experience. Social media mimics community but delivers isolation. Pornography mimics intimacy but destroys your capacity for genuine connection. Streaming services mimic storytelling but lack the transformative power of myth. Self-help books mimic wisdom traditions but package ancient truths as life hacks you can consume without changing. Every synthetic substitute shares key characteristics. It's fast, easy, requires no sacrifice, demands no growth, and leaves you exactly where you started. Real spiritual practice asks everything of you. It requires you to face what you've been avoiding, to die to who you thought you were, to surrender control and trust a process you can't see. The synthetic path asks nothing except your money and attention. It promises transformation without discomfort, growth without pain, transcendence without surrender. Your addiction is what happens when you keep choosing the synthetic over the sacred. Not because you're foolish or weak, but because the sacred path has been hidden from you. Nobody taught you how to build an altar, sit in meditation, work with dreams, or interpret the symbols arising from your unconscious. Nobody showed you how to transmute suffering into wisdom, how to extract meaning from chaos, how to die and be reborn while still breathing. Instead, they taught you to be a consumer. They showed you how to identify feelings of discomfort and match them with products designed to make those feelings go away. Sad. Buy this. Lonely. Click here. Anxious. Take that. Empty. Try these. The entire system is organized around keeping you dependent on external solutions for internal problems. The replacement strategy works because the synthetic versions provide just enough relief to keep you trapped. A drink does change your state of consciousness, just not in a way that leads anywhere meaningful. A pill does alter your neurochemistry, just not in a way that heals the underlying wound. A purchase does create a momentary spike of pleasure, just not the lasting fulfillment you're actually seeking. Jung understood that symbols are the language of the soul. When you lose access to genuine symbols and the practices that activate them, you lose your ability to communicate with the deepest parts of yourself. The unconscious keeps sending messages, but you can no longer read them. Your dreams become noise instead of guidance. Your intuition gets drowned out by constant mental chatter. Your body's wisdom is overridden by chemicals and distractions. The sacred path requires something the modern world has trained you to avoid: patience, effort, discipline, and faith in processes that don't provide instant results. You have to show up day after day with no guarantee of reward. You have to sit with discomfort instead of immediately medicating it. You have to trust that the work you're doing matters even when you can't see results. This is why the synthetic path is so seductive. It offers certainty and speed. Take this substance, get this effect. Follow this program, achieve this outcome. The sacred path offers no such guarantees. You might meditate for months and feel nothing. You might pray for years and hear only silence. You might do everything right and still suffer. But there's a crucial difference. The sacred path leads somewhere real, while the synthetic path is an endless loop that returns you to the same empty starting point. Inside you right now is a hunger that has nothing to do with food, sex, money, or achievement. It's older than your name, deeper than your memories, more fundamental than your personality. Jung called it the religious instinct, but you don't need to be religious to feel it. This hunger exists in atheists and believers alike because it's not about belief. It's about your soul's need for connection to something that transcends your small, separate self. You felt this hunger most acutely as a child. It was there in your endless questions about existence, your fascination with mystery, your ability to see magic in ordinary things. You wondered where you came from, where you would go, what it all meant. You sensed presences in empty rooms, felt the aliveness of nature, experienced time differently, moved fluidly between worlds of imagination and reality. Then they taught you to ignore it. Not maliciously, usually. Most of the adults around you had already learned to ignore their own divine hunger, so they simply passed on what they knew. They taught you that invisible things aren't real, that meaning must be earned through external achievement, that your wild questions had no answers worth pursuing. They trained you to trust only what you could see, measure, and control. Your divine hunger didn't disappear. It went underground. It kept growing in the dark, getting stronger and more desperate, until it began manifesting in ways you didn't recognize. The restlessness you feel on Sunday afternoons. The dissatisfaction that creeps in after every accomplishment, the sense that you're living someone else's life. The sudden waves of grief for something you can't name, the crushing awareness that none of your busy activities actually matter, these are all your divine hunger trying to get your attention. But you were taught to interpret these signals wrong. When your soul screams for meaning, you think you need a better job. When it begs for connection to the infinite, you think you need a new relationship. When it demands authentic expression, you think you need more followers online. When it cries out for purpose beyond yourself, you think you need another degree or certification. You keep trying to satisfy a spiritual hunger with material solutions. The addiction becomes the loudest expression of your ignored hunger. At first, the substance or behavior actually works. It gives you what you've been missing, a sense of peace, connection, expansiveness. For a few hours, the divine hunger is silenced. You feel complete. The search is over. This is what you've been looking for, but it's a lie. The substance doesn't connect you to anything real. It chemically simulates the feelings that genuine spiritual experience produces naturally. It's the difference between eating a meal and looking at a picture of food. Your body might be fooled momentarily, but your soul knows the truth. So the hunger returns, stronger than before, and now you're even further from the real source. What makes this particularly tragic is that your culture has no vocabulary for divine hunger. When you try to describe what you're feeling, people look at you blankly or suggest therapy, medication, or a vacation. Nobody recognizes that you're experiencing something ancient and universal. Nobody affirms that your hunger is actually healthy, that it's the most sane response to a world that has forgotten the sacred. Jung spent his life trying to restore this vocabulary. He insisted that humans are naturally religious creatures who need connection to the numinous, the mysterious, the eternal. He argued that mental health requires a living relationship with symbols and archetypes that connect consciousness to its deeper roots. He demonstrated that when this connection is severed, people develop symptoms: neurosis, addiction, depression, anxiety, and a pervasive sense of meaninglessness. Your divine hunger is trying to lead you home. Every craving is a distorted homing signal. Every compulsion is your soul trying to break through the layers of numbness and conditioning to remind you who you really are. The problem isn't the hunger itself. The hunger is sacred. The problem is that you've been taught to satisfy it with things that can never nourish you. Learning to recognize and honor your divine hunger changes everything. Instead of seeing your cravings as enemies to be fought, you start seeing them as messengers to be decoded. What is your soul actually hungry for? What have you been denying yourself that matters more than any substance? What call have you been refusing to answer? The answers to these questions aren't abstract. Your divine hunger has specific requests. It wants you to create, not just consume. It wants you to connect, not just network. It wants you to serve something greater than your own comfort. It wants you to face your shadows instead of projecting them onto others. It wants you to live from the inside out instead of letting external forces shape you. It wants you to remember that you're part of an intelligent universe that has been trying to reach you through every experience of your life. Your addiction follows patterns. Specific triggers lead to specific thoughts, which lead to specific behaviors, which produce specific consequences. You've probably mapped this territory many times, trying to identify your weak points and strengthen your defenses. But Jung discovered something you might have missed. These patterns aren't random, and they aren't even primarily yours. They're part of a code, a symbolic language your unconscious uses to communicate what your conscious mind refuses to hear. Every relapse happens for a reason, though not the reason you think. You don't fail because you're weak or lack willpower. You fail because part of you is sabotaging your recovery on purpose. Not out of malice, but because that part knows something your conscious mind doesn't. You're trying to heal in the wrong direction. You're trying to become sober while remaining spiritually dead. Your unconscious won't allow it. This is the secret code. Your addiction is a symptom protecting a deeper wound. That wound is protecting an even deeper truth. And that truth is protecting the most dangerous thing of all, your authentic self, the person you were born to be before the world told you who to become. Your unconscious has buried this authentic self under layers of protective mechanisms because bringing it to light would require you to dismantle your entire life. Think about when you relapse. Really think about it. Not the surface reasons like stress or temptation, but what's happening in the weeks and months leading up to it. Often you're making progress. Life is improving. You're feeling stronger, more capable, more in control. Then suddenly, inexplicably, you throw it all away. Why? Because getting better means you'll have to face the next challenge, the next level of growth, the next shedding of false identity, and some part of you isn't ready. Some part knows that continued healing will eventually require you to leave that relationship, quit that job, move to that place, speak that truth, or make that change you've been avoiding for years. So it pulls the emergency brake. Better to stay sick in a familiar prison than risk the terror of unknown freedom. Jung called this the resistance of the psyche to its own transformation. Your conscious mind wants to change, but your unconscious has a different agenda. It's trying to keep you alive according to rules you learned when you were too young to question them. Those rules say, don't shine too brightly or they'll reject you. Don't want too much or you'll be disappointed. Don't trust your own perceptions or you'll be punished. Don't become fully yourself or you'll lose everyone you love. These unconscious rules create a prison with invisible bars. You can't see them, but you feel them every time you approach the edge of your comfort zone. The anxiety, the fear, the sudden craving that derails your progress. These aren't signs of weakness. They're alarm systems protecting outdated survival strategies. Your unconscious is saying, we learned long ago that going beyond this point is dangerous, so we're going to make you hurt until you retreat to safety. Breaking the code requires you to become a detective of your own unconscious. Start paying attention to the timing of your cravings. What were you thinking about in the hours before? What conversation did you have? What possibility were you considering? Often you'll find that the craving arose right when you were approaching a threshold, right when you were about to take a risk, express a truth, or move toward your authentic desires. The pattern reveals what you're actually afraid of. If cravings spike when you're getting close to someone, the prison might be protecting you from intimacy. If they arise when you're succeeding at work, the prison might be protecting you from visibility. If they surface during moments of joy, the prison might be protecting you from hope. Your unconscious knows that feeling these things fully would require you to admit how much of your life has been lived in their absence. This is why traditional addiction treatment often fails. It tries to remove the symptom without addressing the code beneath it. You learn coping skills, attend meetings, develop a support network. These things help, but they don't touch the core issue. You're imprisoned by unconscious agreements you made long ago to stay small, stay safe, and never threaten the people who couldn't handle your full aliveness. Jung insisted that real healing requires making the unconscious conscious. You have to illuminate the dark corners where your authentic self has been hiding. You have to decode the symbolic messages your psyche sends through dreams, symptoms, and compulsive behaviors. You have to face the fact that your suffering serves a purpose, and until you understand that purpose, you'll keep recreating it. The prison has a secret door. It's been there the whole time, but you couldn't see it because it's disguised as the thing you fear most. The very thing you'd do anything to avoid is exactly what would set you free. For some, it's speaking the truth they've been hiding. For others, it's feeling the grief they've been postponing. For many, it's admitting how angry they are beneath all that artificial niceness. Your addiction has been the key to the prison all along. Not because using a substance will free you, but because studying your relationship with that substance reveals everything you need to know about your relationship with yourself. Why do you need to escape your own consciousness? What's so unbearable about being present in your own life? What would happen if you stayed awake through the discomfort instead of immediately medicating it? These questions unlock the code. The answers show you what you've been running from, which reveals what you've been running toward, which illuminates the path that was always waiting for you to notice it. Your prison was never locked from the outside. You've been the guard, the prisoner, and the one holding the key. Freedom isn't sobriety. You can be sober and still live in a prison. You can abstain from every substance, follow every rule, attend every meeting, and remain fundamentally enslaved to the same forces that created your addiction in the first place. Real freedom is something else entirely, and Jung knew that most people fear it more than they fear their chains. True freedom means taking full responsibility for your existence, not just your actions, but your consciousness, your choices, your refusal to keep playing the roles others assigned you. It means looking at every structure in your life and asking, did I choose this, or did I accept it because I was too afraid to want something different? It means admitting that much of what you call your life is actually a compromise with fear. This is why they don't want you to find real freedom. Not some conspiracy of shadowy controllers, but the collective they of everyone invested in your staying exactly as you are. Your family needs you to remain predictable. Your employer needs you to stay productive. Your social circle needs you to keep reflecting their choices back to them. Your culture needs you to keep consuming, competing, and conforming. Your freedom threatens all of it. When you begin to wake up, you become dangerous. Not violent or destructive, but dangerous to the invisible agreements that keep society functioning smoothly. You start asking questions that make people uncomfortable. You stop pretending to care about things that don't matter. You withdraw your energy from activities that feel meaningless. You refuse to laugh at jokes that require someone's humanity to be diminished. You stop being who they need you to be and start becoming who you actually are. This is terrifying, not just for others, but for you. Because once you see the prison clearly, you can't unsee it. Once you recognize how much of your life has been lived according to other people's scripts, you can't keep pretending. The option of comfortable numbness disappears. You're left with a choice: return to sleep and accept a life of quiet desperation, or stay awake and face the monumental task of building an authentic existence from scratch. Jung called this process individuation. It's the journey of becoming who you were always meant to be, which requires separating yourself from the collective programming that shaped you. This doesn't mean rejecting all social norms or becoming selfishly isolated. It means developing a conscious relationship with cultural forces instead of being unconsciously controlled by them. It means choosing which traditions serve your growth and releasing those that don't. The path of individuation demands everything. You'll have to examine every belief you inherited and decide whether it's actually true for you. You'll have to confront the parts of yourself you've been denying and integrate them into a more complete sense of who you are. You'll have to give up the fantasy that someone else can save you and accept that you're the only one who can do this work. You'll have to walk away from people and situations that require you to stay small. Most people prefer addiction to this level of freedom. At least addiction is familiar. At least you know what to expect. At least you can blame your problems on a substance instead of facing the terrifying truth that you've been betraying yourself for years. At least you can stay connected to people who knew the old version of you instead of risking the loneliness that comes with transformation. But here's what freedom actually offers. It offers the possibility of waking up each morning and recognizing yourself. It offers relationships based on truth instead of need. It offers work that serves your soul instead of just paying bills. It offers the profound relief of no longer having to maintain an exhausting performance. It offers the discovery that who you actually are is far more interesting than who you were pretending to be. Freedom means your life becomes an expression of your deepest values instead of a reaction to others' expectations. It means you can finally rest because you're no longer at war with yourself. It means your energy flows naturally into what matters instead of being drained by internal conflict. It means the divine hunger finally gets fed because you're no longer trying to satisfy it with substitutes. The journey requires courage Jung called religious. Not courage to believe in a particular doctrine, but courage to trust the process of your own becoming. Courage to follow the thread of meaning even when it leads into darkness. Courage to sacrifice who you've been for who you're becoming. Courage to stand alone if necessary, knowing that authentic solitude is better than false connection. Your addiction has been protecting you from this freedom. It's kept you safely imprisoned, unable to make real changes, because you're always dealing with the consequences of your compulsions. It's given you an excuse to stay small. It's convinced you that you're too broken to dream, too damaged to desire, too weak to wander off the approved path. But the moment you truly commit to freedom, everything shifts. The same energy you've been using to maintain your addiction becomes available for transformation. The same intensity you brought to your substance becomes fuel for your emergence. The same focus you applied to obtaining your fix gets redirected toward discovering your purpose. You're not weak. You've been incredibly strong. You just haven't been using your strength for yourself. Freedom awaits on the other side of every fear you've been avoiding. It's there, right past the edge of your comfort zone, just beyond the story you've been telling about why you can't change. Jung promised that if you're willing to face your shadow, integrate your wounds, and trust the intelligence of your psyche, you'll discover something astonishing. You were never actually trapped. The prison was always made of beliefs, not bars, and beliefs can change in an instant.